Welcome everyone. Today we have Ashley Jewell returning as a whistleblower for the child network operations right here in Australia, which has been, I think, shocking to many people to see exactly the extent of these operations. And I think your story at this time is so important and so powerful. And it really backs up, we've had incredible whistleblowers like Rachel Vaughan, Fiona Barnett come through over previous decades and really reveal, the extent of these operations and the networks and the infiltration of all of our systems in Australia, which was so shocking. But it's easy, looking back at their childhoods, which were a little bit longer ago than yours, and sort of, I know a lot of people are thinking, has there been changes? Have things actually been fixed? Have are our children actually being protected? And your story coming forward at this time, Ashley, is so powerful because it's not only a later generation, but it has been so very recent as well. And I think it's really waking the Australian public up to the fact that this has not been fixed, it's not been corrected. If anything, it's far, far worse than it was many decades ago. And we really need to start listening to and supporting our whistleblowers that are coming forward, because, I just think without your courage and bravery to speak about these things, how do we create the change that we so need in this society and protect our children and actually expose what's happening? So thank you so much for joining me again.
Thanks for having me, Gabs. Really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. And I know the latest update on your story is, now after talking about being involved in a network and being trafficked for over a decade, from when you were very, very young, 3 years old, you've actually taken, the next step and been able to go in and make a report. And I know that, that's a huge challenge for whistleblowers to go into a system and make reports about, this kind of high level corruption and what's happening out in our communities. And also it's a time that, whistleblowers and survivors are under more stress. They're under potentially pushback and, further corruption from the network trying to silence them. And I know that you've definitely been witness to that over the last few days with making your report. So I'd love to hear, how you found the whole system and how it was making a report, because we know that there's over 35,000 reports of child abuse every year in this country, which is an absolute epidemic. But my question is always, how many go unreported? And I know as a child, when I was in a position to make a report, I chose not to because my family was unstable. I didn't have the support. And I'd also seen a lot of children around me actually make reports and them completely be thrown out of the justice system, and these children actually being persecuted enough to experience being moved to schools, harassment. And I was just like, there's no way that I can do that with my family in the state that it's in at the moment. So it'll be really interesting, I think, to reveal to the public what the reporting system is like today for someone going forward about a historical child sexual abuse claim, but it's also really about organised network trafficking as well.
Yep. So I did make first and foremost, before I made my trafficking report in 2015, I did make a report regarding my father and the allegations of child sexual abuse to a specific unit that works with historical abuse cases. And I found that process to be a really positive process. I was met with somebody initially that I immediately identified as being a sexual perpetrator, and I just claimed that I didn't feel comfortable and I wanted a female officer. So I was given a female officer. You never tell them that reason.
No.
And I was given a female.
How awful
who was fantastic
to come face to face with someone you can pick as a perpetrator. Awful. Please continue.
Totally. But then at the same time, we know that people in the network work in these units and these operations in order to get rid of claims and things like that. And at this point, I wasn't really aware that I had been targeted for a long time, in terms of that I was still being watched by the network.
Sure.
So I found that process really good and really positive. Since coming forward, I was attacked and raped in my own home in late 2020 by the team that was assigned to me when I made the report to Crime Stoppers. And I reported that to the police, and that was investigated fairly thoroughly.
Wow.
To the full letter of the law. So I really appreciated that, and thank the officers involved for that. Ultimately, it didn't have the outcome, but look, at the end of the day, I didn't expect it to. But in regards to this, so I made my initial report to Crime Stoppers. Sorry, hang on. I just want to go back and rephrase that. The rape happened, in late 2021 that I reported by the team that was assigned to me from the after the report to Crime Stoppers in late 2020. Sorry, I apologize. So I made the report.
What a horrific response to choosing to speak out and make a report like that for someone that's already been a victim. To receive that level of harassment is so targeting, and we know that rape is used as another way to silence and mentally destabilize individuals and prevent them from coming forward. So I'm so sorry to hear you had that experience. It's terrific.
No worries, Gab. It's all good. At the end of the day, I've been raped thousands and thousands of times. Doesn't bother me. So look, it was just about reporting it to the police and holding people to account. That's all it's about. So basically, when I made my report to Crime Stoppers, as I said in my previous interview, it identified me. Crime Stoppers is not a confidential reporting system, I don't believe. I believe that the network have access to people's IP addresses and where they made that from. That's how they could identify me, because I never identified myself by name. It was confidential.
Wow.
So it's been basically a personal kind of journey, because I have been targeted. Initially, I sort of gave up on the institution. I had no faith in it, and I thought, well, when I saw the buildings being demolished, when I saw the animal business opening up on the floors, I sort of gave up. I was like, I have no faith in the institution anymore. I'm not going to come forward. However, they chose to target me anyway. They were pissed off and angry, and they chose to enact punitive measures. Because of that, I felt that I had no choice to try to advocate for justice. And it's really, in my opinion, their own fault. So
I guess they've pushed you in a corner where that you've been threatened, you've received more trauma, and it's going to have two outcomes. You're either going to shut up and withdraw, or, like you have, continue pushing forward. So, I think it's incredible, your strength and your courage that you've had to really confront all of this. And, it just makes me such a powerful example of how grateful we all should be for our whistleblowers coming forward and what they actually endure to get these stories out. So thank you.
No worries. Thanks so much, Gabs. Yeah, so after being targeted for a year and a half, things only slowly get worse and worse and worse. That's what they do. I basically had a team assigned to me to target me, I believe. And I've been subjected to ongoing abuse, destruction of my reputation. They've contacted hundreds of people. I think people wouldn't really, prior to coming forward, I don't believe that people would genuinely believe that any organization would waste such a huge level of resources against one citizen. It's very hard to believe. It's just like as if you would waste all these resources. But resources are something that these people have a lot of. Trafficking is, they get people for free, and they can sell these kids for, say, 30, 35K a pop for murder. So taxpayers fund the Department of Child Safety, and they're put in the network's hands a lot of the time for free. So money's not a problem. And it's just they have policies in place for what they will do to handle whistleblowers. and they will conduct these operations no matter what.
Yeah.
It's just a fact.
Yeah, and this definitely, echoes other stories and, other experiences that I've had survivors speak about to me. So, for people watching, I just want to assure them that this is, fairly standard tactics that unfortunately are used against targeted individuals right here in Australia.
Exactly. And the issue lies with going to law enforcement. So my advice for any whistleblowers would probably be, as a first step, not to go to law enforcement first thing. Certainly don't use any anonymous reporting systems. We are always constantly encouraged to use anonymous reporting systems, confidential online reporting systems. This is not safe. It is not safe at all. And I would just advise against doing that. So, there's been other whistleblowers that have come forward to like the 7:30 report and media like that have had more success in terms of their protection. But ultimately, a lot of them have also been targeted and put up on false charges. So I will just quickly, I'm well connected with a bunch of different whistleblowers now through my experiences and through chatting with people. And what I've ascertained is basically they have a number of approaches that they will use based on the level of threat to target whistleblowers. So we've got, I've just written it down. The highest level of threat, you were killed. So if they were really, truly worried about me, I wouldn't even be here, mate.
Yeah.
Second level of threat, false charges and incarceration in a psychiatric prison or a prison and destruction of family members' reputation. Bear in mind, this is all based on other whistleblowers' first-hand accounts. It's based on, a year and a half of research that I've been doing, and I've been talking with people, not just pulling this out of thin air.
Yeah.
Third highest level of threat, which is me. Targeted destruction of a person's life and illegal research is conducted on the person. In my case, look, monarchs are treated sort of differently as well. And the way that a monarch is handled, this all goes back to a research database that they will use for future whistleblowers. So this is quite common for people to go to law enforcement with credible information. Fourth, removal of children by the Department of Child Safety, loss of job, destruction of reputation.
Yeah.
5, drug addiction or attempts to induce serious mental health issues.
Wow.
And mental health is very, very prevalent in all of these aspects, apart from obviously somebody being killed, unless their death is ruled as suicide. So the mental health system, as we know, is really used to disseminate and destroy the reputation and the information provided by survivors.
Yeah.
It is a continual tactic. I personally work in mental health. I'm a huge advocate for mental health. I really believe in facilitating positive mental health and going to therapy. And I believe in therapy and I believe in healing. It's very important to me.
Absolutely.
But it's very important to understand that it is a tactic that has been utilized by the network to basically, say that a person is not credible. And that's perfectly understandable. We've seen it used in court cases and stuff as well.
Absolutely.
So I did want to talk about today. Basically, I made the report to Crime Stoppers. I was targeted. I made the report regarding the rape. This is the contact that I've had in law enforcement. I've considered over the past, this whole time of going to law enforcement again and making a statement on record with my name. The reason why I haven't has been threats, direct threats to my life, which then stopped concerning me because who cares? When I came forward, I was prepared to be killed. I very much was expected to be killed, and I wasn't, and I was surprised. And then I had threats to family members, to their jobs, and that kind of thing. And that really kept me in line for a long period of time.
Yeah.
They go very, very hard in the beginning because this is the time when they haven't fabricated and falsified evidence against you. And this is when you're the strongest. So they were successful in doing that. They were successful in preventing me going to law enforcement. I did attempt to go to law enforcement. And when I went in to chat to the officer that had handled my rape case, he was immediately called out to an emergency. And I asked for him to call me back so that I could name the operation. And unfortunately, he never did. I don't see him as being part of the network in any way, shape, or form. I don't know why he never called me back. He didn't. It just happened that way. So
wow,
it's just the way that it goes. Now, the way that I've gotten in touch with the AFP was through a police officer who was actually on Facebook, who's an advocate for child trafficking. So I said, basically, can you please freaking help me? I need to make a report at some point. And I'm worried about going to local police because of other whistleblowers have testified and said that all falsified evidence has been created. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, because so many people have that negative experience with local police as well. So
yeah, and it's not just a negative experience. Like, what it is that, like, based on like these normal systems, we've already got these normal systems in place, which we know are challenging for survivors to move forward. You know, for example, when I went in to report my rape, I was made to sit for 5 hours and wait, and they expected me to leave. I'm not going to leave. Who cares? I'll sit there for 3 weeks. I don't care. Whatever. So that's just like a normal stock standard thing. Not all the time, but this is just the way that the system is run. It's a lot to run an investigation. It's a money issue as well. So we know this. But then on top of all that, what was I going to say? Yeah, like the network really works to prevent reports being made.
Really discourage them from what you're saying as well, which is backed up by what I hear from other whistleblowers as well. You know, how many people would have experienced what you did after your personal details being compromised by Crime Stoppers, who we've had called out as a third party that is cult operated or cult infiltrated at least. You know, how many survivors would have at that stage went, this is too much, I'm backing off? How many have we actually lost? There's no record of that.
So many. There's no record. We don't know. And it's just, it's just shocking. So I think, but I do think that's part of the issue why people also don't really believe that these networks exist, because they don't really understand what they are willing to do to target every survivor and every person and shut every person up. And that's kind of shocking. It's like, wow, like we would know something. Of course, we would hear about it in the media if there was satanic ritual abuse being operated.
Yeah, it's like that comment, how come I haven't seen it on the TV, that I hear from people that are a little bit still asleep at the moment, and I'm just like, right.
Exactly. So I finally got through to the AFP, and I got in touch through this officer who like set up a meeting for me basically, and was very, very helpful. And it was basically just somebody being kind, a kind, good, moral, legal officer helping me. That's the way that I see it. So I don't want to say that the whole system is corrupt. There's definitely good people working within the system. It's just that we've got people within the network specifically positioned in the system to discredit survivors, and that's a part of that. So I finally, I didn't even have this meeting with the AFP. I was assigned an AFP officer. I spoke to the officer on the phone. He asked me to detail the network operation and name the business over the phone. I refused to do that. I just said, frankly, I'm not doing it. Because who knows where that information is going to be reported. And he said, you can trust me as an officer. Well, I said, well, I can't. Sure. It's not that I didn't trust this bloke. It's just that, or trust his integrity. It's that I don't trust a system when it's not written down on paper. And that's just, legal protection. Yeah, so I said, I'm just going to wait for an interview, and I'll wait and wait and wait as long as it takes. So anyway, I waited. He had to travel elsewhere. I wasn't notified, so I was just waited for like 3 weeks. And I got back in touch with the officer on Facebook, and she said don't give up. He's had to travel elsewhere, presumably for work or something. I don't know. I'll get you an interview. So someone else will contact you. So I was waiting. Anyway, during all of this, I'm still being targeted. I was getting like really fed up. And so I was like, I'm just going to go into the Child Centre for Exploitation in Brisbane, which is a faction of the AFP, and they help child trafficking survivors. So I went in there, just rocked up, And they said, go to your local police station. They said, we don't take complaints, but you can go to your local police station. And I said to them, I've got credible and widespread reports from whistleblowers that what happens when, in some cases, is that falsified evidence is created against a whistleblower, and then the matter is escalated to a matter of potentially national security. Then their file is flagged so that the powers of state and local police are constrained in terms of what they can investigate. This is just based on hearsay, just based on, whistleblowers' reports. So I expressed that to these officers, and they were AFP officers, and they very much listened to my claims. They believed believed what I said, and they said, look, if you are genuinely worried, go straight into the AFP office. Now, I'd been trying to find the AFP office for ages, didn't know where it was. They told me the address, finally rocked up, went in, and was given a 25-minute interview, which was not really what I would call
Can't really get
an interview. I think anybody else would have. Yeah, I mean, basically, I was just told a bunch of information, and it was just a very, very unpleasant interview that I certainly would never wish any other survivor would go through. So I left after 25 minutes. I walked away feeling very defeated. And then an hour later, I incidentally just randomly got a call from one of the members of trafficking. I believe that she's like the team leader, but I'm not 100% sure. And she said, come in and I'll give you an interview. Sorry it's taken so long to contact you. I've been really busy. And I said, I was just there an hour ago. And she said, oh, were you? Like, no one notified me that you were even here. That's really strange. And people that interviewed you weren't from trafficking or anything. So we set up an interview on the following Monday. How long have I been going for, Gabs? A long time.
No, not at all. Please keep going. Yeah, probably half an hour-ish. You're doing good. Isn't that it's such a strange unfolding of events that this call that you finally got just happened to be after an interview that sounds very much like it was an effort to just silence and shut you down.
Yeah, it was pretty unpleasant.
Mm.
We arranged a time, and I was just like preparing for the interview over the weekend. Now, it was my impression that they basically made the interview as soon as possible, because it was a Friday when I got the call. She didn't have time to do it on the Friday afternoon. She said they don't work Saturday, Sunday. So I didn't really see it as in any way an effort to push me back. I think, she genuinely wanted to get me in as soon as possible. So I came in and, so I was due to come in on 9 a.m. on Monday morning. This is this previous Monday that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the basically night/morning of, two men entered my apartment and conducted what I would call an interrogative kind of questioning interview, an interrogation, basically, in an attempt to try to discredit me, stop my information being credible, and just basically like upset me and just put me through hell so that I couldn't provide a good statement.
So really to just disturb you completely from preparing for this interview. How awful.
Yeah. But it was really good in the sense that I wasn't drugged. So I have a lot of credible information. I don't believe that they thought that I would actually remember the vast majority of what I've remembered about it. And it's really valuable information that I believe is actually being used and really helpful in destroying a person's reputation in general. So I think that it's probably valuable that it gets out there for other whistleblowers so that they know this is being done and replicated in very similar fashion when talking to random members of the public in an attempt to destroy your reputation. So basically what they did was so first of all, there was the team lead case by the organised trafficking network that's been targeting me for a year and a half. I never have actually known 100% who they are because their face is always covered. but they felt safe in this situation. They felt that they didn't need to. I don't think they wanted to drug me because I was going into the AFP's office, but I think that they felt that they were safe enough that I wouldn't remember the faces. And the other person was actually a member of law enforcement. So what they did was they enacted a punitive measure in an effort to get me to dissociate and bring up that core attached part of myself, which is 3 years of age, that has basically that part of my brain that has all of the memories to the child trafficking operation that I was about to report. Because the child trafficking operation that I was reporting, the trafficking occurred from the age of 3 to the age of 6 at this particular business.
Wow.
So basically what they're doing is they're going for like a 3-year-old part of the self, and they're conducting full on interrogative style of interview. And I'm just in paper here to go through what happened.
It's really like they're going back and really targeting that specific, person or the specific area of your mind to, stop you from being able to access that so well the next day as well. It's recreating trauma like around those memories. How awful. Exactly. How deliberate and how targeted.
Exactly. So like that would just make me technically dissociate when I go into the interview and, stuff with the memory. So once the dissociation occurred, step 1, this is just basically what the technique that I mastered. Show badge. So present the fact that this is a genuine law enforcement officer. So I was showing their badge.
No shame.
And just begin to have a very easy going. Yep. So I'm just about to go in for an interview with law enforcement, and this is done. It's just like, also that just like, it makes me have lack of faith. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, like I've been raped by heaps of police officers, so whatever. I know that the network operates within the system, so whatever. But it just gives credibility to what they were about to say. So what they did say is, and I'm just going to say this in terms of a generalistic way as well, because I believe that this is a very specific interrogative pattern that they will use to discredit survivors. So had a general easygoing nature chat about the relationship with the subject. I was called the subject, and tried to get an opinion on the person. So how well do you know them? Basically imply that he's conducting an investigation into this person because they have concerns for this person. So I'm saying this generalistically as though like this wasn't,
It's like a technique being used.
It's a technique. So, yeah. Step 3, once the officer has an opinion of your opinion, then they can choose how to approach you. So if you really like the person, then they're going to begin a really hard-hitting interrogative style technique to address, dismiss, and challenge every facet of what you've just told them about your opinion of them and what you know and their morals and who they are as a person, with evidence to support their claim. So basically what they did was they were saying like, oh, well, is not a good person. He is, there's mental health issues, there's other issues, there's information that we've got, and presenting them with real evidence and fabricated evidence. It doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. If there's not enough evidence, they'll create it, but they'll also use real factual things as well if they've got it. And I believe that this is just something, like it was done on my own in an attempt to fragment my brain, but I believe that they'll use this on members of the public. Okay. So in this instance, depending on your relationship with the person will depend on what evidence you're shown. And the higher your opinion of a person is, the worse the information or the footage that will be shown to them. So in this instance, I was shown footage of myself, alleged footage of myself. It was on a device that I don't actually recognize, but it was like, one of those fat devices. So it's like, I don't think it had any connection with the internet or anything. Like it couldn't really be hacked wirelessly or anything. Now, I've never seen anything like it. It was just like a device that was really had that like thick security thing. I don't know. You'd see it in the movie.
Right.
And I was shown video footage of myself harming and eating an animal.
Oh my God.
And basically that was to portray me as a sexually sadistic perpetrator.
Yeah.
Right.
So really,
Then I was told that basically,
I was just saying, so really they're attempting
mm,
to make you question yourself, to undermine your confidence, to really just overwhelm your mind right before they obviously knew you were going to go in and make a report to the AFP. Awful.
yeah. And what they really wanted to do was separate the part of myself that was like that core attachment period of 3 years of age and separate that from me and get it away so that when I went in for the interview, I couldn't remember.
Couldn't
So
access
that's why the access to it, the discreditation occurred.
it.
So then it was stated that to address these concerns, because like video footage, I was obviously very shocked,
How
appalled, and
upsetting.
very upset. And
And I guess you
yeah, it's
don't
just
know whether
awful.
that
And
is
you know that
you
that's
either. You don't know, is that actually you, because of the level of this,
yeah.
obviously targeting and, manipulation of information. Like, that's so upsetting. You're just wondering, like, was I actually forced to do this? Is this made up?
I have no idea. So yeah, they do. So no idea. But if you're showing that to a part of the self that's, like 3,
Yeah.
it's going to scare the shit out of that part of your brain. So then it was stated that actually, because like the argument was, well, why isn't this person in prison? Like, why isn't Ash being put in prison and incarcerated for being a sexually sadistic perpetrator? And the argument is that what actually they're doing right now is they're doing research on me, and it's backed by other research. And I was shown research papers, genuine research, scientific papers that show that we can change perpetration, and we can change sexual perpetration, we can change psychopathic tendencies. Now, I fundamentally believe that even though that research is real, that's impossible to occur. I don't believe it. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But basically, they presented the fact that, look, we know that you're a good person. We know that ultimately this isn't really who you are. You're not really a sexually sadistic perpetrator. But what we want to do is we want to prevent you, because, like, if you're hurting animals, you could go on to hurt humans. So what we're going to do is we're going to enact these kind of methods, and based on this very credible, solid research, and we are members of law enforcement, and we're going to help you change. Because at the end of the day, really strong support network. You've got people that love you, the people that rely on you. You're running a business, you're helping people. So we are doing a service to the community by helping you.
Oh my God.
By enacting these methods. And that's why the way that it was very, very convincing, even for me. It's literally myself.
Yeah.
This sounds pretty, legit. So that's why I believe that it's you. If they can just replicate this and use this exact thing and chat to members of the public, friends of mine or something, and convince them that what they're doing, they're allowed to do it. They should be doing it. They're providing a service to the community. They're helping me. And ultimately, they're not ripping my life to shreds by putting me in prison.
Wow. So really they're justifying their measures.
Exactly. And the whole purpose was to make me dissociate, to make me, just like break my mind so that I couldn't have access to that part of my mind that had those memories, so that when I went in for the interview, I would be all over the shop.
Yeah.
And basically I had to go through about a couple of hours worth of really, really intense self-care work, and just go through all of everything that had happened, because they didn't drug me, and that was a failure. So they believed that I wouldn't remember it, because my brain, they'd engaged a part of the brain that was so young. So I believe that they thought that they wouldn't remember it. And then I also heard them talking. The officer was talking with the team leader out in the kitchen afterwards, when I was like, quote unquote, asleep, really sleep like the way that other people do. Because of my childhood, I have insomnia. So sometimes I'm, half awake.
Yeah.
And they were discussing the fact that their plan was disseminate the information, make me give a completely non-credible statement, make me out to be completely mentally ill, and if that failed, make me out to be a drug. And that really mirrored the content of the quote-unquote interview that I had on Friday, with the 25-minute interview that didn't follow complete protocol with the AFP. And this is all just prior. So I'm waking up and I'm dealing with this crap just prior to my interview with the AFP. So look, at the end of the day, yes, this is a member of law enforcement that's obviously working for the network, but they still don't want me to give that statement to the AFP. Yeah. You know, and I woke up feeling, I don't feel like giving an interview. Yeah. I don't know if I can trust my own self to give an interview. I genuinely felt that. And yet I still went ahead and did it anyway, of course.
Wow. Well, you did an amazing job preparing and overcoming, you know, this last minute deliberate trauma just before having to make that report. And, you know, as a survivor processing my own memories, like I know that when something new happens or something comes up that's related to something, you know, in the past, you literally do feel like you've got brain swelling at times. Like it's just that particular part of your brain's been activated. You're going into that area where it's probably quite scarred from everything that you've been through before as a young child. And, you know, this kind of interrogation technique and what they've done is just mind control. Like it's so deliberate what they've attempted to do to just shut down and silence you. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, and so I went in for my interview with the AFP and they gave me roughly 2 hours, which just wasn't enough time. I just didn't have enough time to name all the names I wanted to name, to lay out everything that I wanted to lay out. I did discuss with them at length the way the legislation was, and they were from the trafficking division, and they said that a lot of what I've detailed involving murders, homicide is dealt with on a state level, and different states have different legislation and different laws. And I said, this is, you know, a huge policy issue when we've got organised network trafficking on a national scale where children are moved from state to state. So how can that possibly be legal? And, you know, I just understood that they just said, look, well, that's just the way that it is and we're constrained by it. But I think that all of these little things are actually big things when it comes to the prosecution of people within the network. And you've got to get the timing right. Like if a perpetrator is moving from state to state, then you've got to make sure that your statement's accurate and at the time. So they said they're going to look into it. They're going to run an investigation. I really appreciate that. Whether or not, I don't believe that it will. But look, it was good to get it down on paper, and I'm glad that I did it finally after, you know, a year and a half, nearly 2 years since making that initial Crime Stoppers report. And I said to them, I did make that Crime Stoppers report, and then within weeks, the trafficking house was demolished. I detailed that to them so that they knew.
Wow. Wow. Well, good on you for getting the report in. Like you said, we don't know what the outcome of that would be from this stage. However, at least it's recorded. You've done what you can, and judging by what's happened over the last few days, like we have an even better understanding of the infiltration of these systems at this stage. They're really attempting to silence whistleblowers by the network. Absolutely. And I did want to say one more thing, Gabs. Yeah.
That's okay.
Please do.
Yeah. Yes. The research that they presented me with, it really goes back to if you guys have watched any of my previous interviews, part 3, which is now being removed from YouTube, but we'll put it back up somehow. I detailed that I went to a psychologist that was tried to program me. So basically, this psychologist works in the psychiatric prison system and is involved in programming innocent citizens into becoming sexual perpetrators, and then they are subsequently incarcerated in the psychiatric mental health system and put in the sex offender program. And I just wanted to touch on that because it's important for me. If they're gathering scientific evidence-based research and popping it in a study that's based on fixing a person and changing a sexual perpetrator, if it's based on an innocent person that has been programmed to commit sex crimes and then they undo that programming, and that person no longer commits sex crimes because they were never a perpetrator to begin with. And then that evidence is literally used to justify, what they're doing to people like me. It's just all part of it. And what we know is that it is a lot easier to break a human being down and force them to do things than it is to fix a sexual perpetrator, than it is to fix a sexually sadistic person. We have absolutely no evidence to suggest that sexually sadistic perpetrators can be fixed, and we can create empathy, create compassion, create a life for them. I have hope for the future, but at this point, based on meeting nearly 4,000 perpetrators, I don't believe we're at that point. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
No, that's awesome. I just wanted to thank you for your courage and your bravery again as a whistleblower coming forward. And this is how we make change in the communities. People need to understand. I know a lot of people have commented on your videos that we've shared over the last couple of months, and they've been quite dumbfounded, why a report wasn't made earlier with the AFP, and they couldn't understand that when something was reported to Crime Stoppers that it didn't proceed. And I think this chat that we've had today really helps explain what survivors and whistleblowers are actually up against when they go forward and try and report this. There's harassment, there's deliberate silencing, we've seen mind control techniques here, and you've got this threat of being labelled as mentally ill, and this constantly comes up with our whistleblowers coming forward, so we can be a step ahead and be aware that they're going to do that. And I encourage, everyone to take very good care of themselves, make sure they're in a good position before you go and make the report. Like you did, Ash, make sure you're really well prepared and you have a team of support around you as well. Unfortunately, the level of infiltration and corruption in our systems isn't going to disappear. However, we can work together and know, what these guys are doing so we can pass the truth across. And, I'm so happy that at least we can get this message out to the public. And hopefully, whether you're a survivor listening to this or you are listening just because you can't believe this is happening in our communities, please share, please raise awareness. That's the best way that we can support our whistleblowers like Ash, and at least create a space of awareness so there's some safety around them. And let the network know that the public are aware. We're following this case. It's not going to go away, regardless of the outcome of your report that you bravely put in this week. It's out in the public, it's being discussed, and no doubt it's encouraging and inspiring other survivors to come forward and begin sharing their stories as well. And I believe you've done it in a great order too, and that actually telling your story first before perhaps making the report, because I've seen this in other stories, and it's just meant that I think you're in a more empowered position. The truth is out there, so in some ways, what can they silence? They've obviously done their best, but it's already out there and being discussed. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time, sharing your experience, and I hope you're taking care of yourself and know that so many people are sending you much love and much strength, from all around Australia, but also from all around the world for being a voice for our children at this time of, so much deceit. It's so needed.
Thank you, Gabs.
You are so welcome.
Yeah, I do want to say, so there's a bit of lag. I hope I'm not talking over the top of you. Am I?
No, not at all.
Okay. Yep. I do want to say that at the end of the day, everything that I've gone through and everything that I've endured over the past year and a half since coming forward, for me, I see it part and parcel of consequences, punitive measures enacted, that I accept, because at the end of the day, I really just care about, and who really gives a damn about what happens to me? What really truly matters is that this trafficking doesn't continue, that children and young women are saved, and that something is done. about these trafficking situations. And I don't speak on behalf of every whistleblower, but I do want to say that I hugely advocate for the protection of whistleblowers in Australia. And so many people are going through such challenging and difficult circumstances, some worse than mine. And, you know, I really applaud them for everything they've done. They're truly incredible, and they continue to inspire me every day. And people like you, Gabs,
No, thank you.
Also inspire me. And I just want to thank you so much for giving me a platform to discuss this, because, you know, I haven't been able to discuss it anywhere else. And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because the more the public is aware, the more this information out there that it is, the less that they can continue to do what they've been doing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you so much for the public support. I've had people come up to me in public and express the fact that they support me, and it means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Right back at you. And I'm so pleased to hear that you're feeling the support of everyone. And I see that growing and growing as people become more and more aware of exactly, you know, what you have sacrificed and what you have done. And I agree with you completely. You know, this infestation, this just epidemic of trafficking and organised networks in Australia, it needs to change. It needs to come down and be exposed. And it's a mission that is bigger than any individual. And I completely stand with you and support you. You know, that's what we need to do, is, you know, take care of our whistleblowers. That's how we make the changes that are so, so needed in our world, and especially for our children. So thank you, Ashley. And I look forward to chatting to you again soon. Hopefully we'll have a positive outcome from this report. That'd be wonderful.
That'd be fantastic. That's a dream.
Take care of yourself, and please, everyone, let's support Ash by watching this video, sharing this video, and I'll pop all the links for Ash's other interviews below. So if you haven't caught up on all of those, they're definitely incredible to watch, to just understand the network situation in Australia at this time. We'll chat to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, Gabs.
You're welcome.